Okay, making progress, getting closer to completing our PKS installation here. Getting to the final stretch with PKS installation Phase 2 lab guide. I'm sure if you're watching Phase 2 lab, you're probably, if you haven't already, you'll want to first check out the PKS Phase 1 lab guide, which you can find on this YouTube channel that you're looking at now, the PKS-Ninja-Labs YouTube channel. So I am going to skip additional introduction here, just a quick reminder on how to get to the lab guide from the homepage. Right, so from the homepage again, github.com/cna-tech/pks-ninja. The first thing we're going to do is change the branch from our master branch to our PKS 1.4 branch. And kind of an easier way to get there, I think, is just to click on courses and click on PKS the hard way, which covers our manual installation process. And then here we can see this video series we're going through the entire manual installation path. This stage in the video, or in the path, we're on PKS install phase 2, where you should see each of these previous videos available on the channel. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Okay, so first things first, get into OpsMan. We're going to go through, if I remember, as part of phase 1, one of the things that we did was click that import a product here. So now we go back to OpsMan and we can see it was actually importing the bits that we were uploading before, and now we can see that's available. We can just go over here and click on that our plus arrow, and then we have another another tile here, one for Enterprise PKS. And just like we did with the Bosch tile, we can click on it and we can see there's a bunch of tabs here where we can fill in the values of how we want our PKS VM or PKS control plane VM to be configured. So once again, I'm following the lab guide on the PKS Ninja GitHub repo. Step 1.2 gives us information here. So we're going to go to PKS Management 1, PKS Management 1, right? Because we're going to place our PKS VM on the PKS Management Network. The service network will also put here as PKS Management for now. So that's actually a placeholder value that we use here, because the service network will actually be created on demand during the deployment. So we'll go ahead and click Next. And we'll go to the PKS API tab, and we're actually going to generate a certificate here. And we'll put star.corp.local, create a wildcard certificate. Oops, make sure you don't put a comma in there. That wouldn't be good. Okay, generate. Now for the API hostname, we're going to do pks.corp.local. And click Save. And move on to step 1.5 in our lab guide. Select our plan 1 here. And as you can see, there's plans, again, they're like the t-shirt size. Generally, if you have different developers or groups within your organization when you're using that consume PKS, and it's a good practice, or probably a needed practice in these cases, to have different plan sizes, and that plan size defines how large a given Kubernetes cluster will be when you request that size to be provisioned. And so you can have up to 10 predefined plans, and there's a number of different command line flags that you can use to dynamically adjust plan size at deployment time as well. So we're just going to go ahead and configure our small deployment size here. And let's see. So I'm going to put these master availability zone. We're going to say is PKS comp. So we're going to deploy both the master and the worker nodes to the PKS comp resource pool. And we're going to do 2 worker node instances. So don't need too much here. and we'll set the worker persistent disk type to, let's see, 20 gigs. And I'm going to go ahead and set the size down here to small. Alright, since we're working in a very oversubscribed environment here in our lab environment. And let's see, worker availability is on. We'll make sure we set to PKS comp. And we're going to allow privileged containers. It's because we're a lab environment here and we're trying to learn a lot of things. So it would be useful to have enabled. And click save. Now, let's see. Plan 2 through 10 by default will be set to inactive, so you don't have to worry about setting those other plans or doing anything to them unless you need them. Now, moving on to step 1.8, select the Kubernetes Cloud Provider tab. Okay, and we're going to enter the values according to the lab guide here. So we're going to say we're up on vSphere, obviously, right? And administrator at corp.local. Right, VMware1 bang is the password. And we'll see our vCenter host. It's vcsa-01a corp.local and region A01, and we'll copy and paste our data store name here. Save a little typing. And it is PKS_VMs. We'll go ahead and save that. Now, to complete the next, we're going to get into this networking configuration down here. But there's some values that we need to gather out of NSX-T. So that we can appropriately align these things. We get the ID values for the IP pod, the IP block for pods, and the IP block for nodes. So let's go ahead and jump back into our NSX-T Manager UI, and we're going to go. Where is it again? And networking IPAM. And actually, that's the one that uses the. I need to update the instructions there because that's using for the new API. So here we are, and we can get our IP block nodes deployment. So we'll copy this value. I'm just gonna open up my Sketchpad here, Notepad++, and put it down here. We'll say nodes block. Actually, we don't need to do that. We can just put it directly into our opsman right here. So go into our opsman. And we're going to go to our networking tab. Set up our NSX-T interface here. And we'll go ahead and put, we said this is our nodes block. Put that there. Go back over here. Get our pods block. Jump into opsman, paste the pods block. Jump back into NSX, go to routers, click on the T, or actually we got the ID already right there for the T0. So copy that, jump back into opsman here, and paste that. Now we got to get our VIPs pool here, so that's going to be down in inventory groups, IP pools, and then we're going to go to IP pool VIPs. And copy all that, and then go back into opsman, paste that here, right? Okay, and we'll finish up our NSX configuration here. NSX manager. Now, once our super user principal identity certificate and the private key, as well as the NSX Manager CA cert. So first, we're going to go and get the principal identity certificates that we created in the end of phase 1, and this should be saved in your root directory. If you'd already disconnected, you can reconnect back to Ubuntu at CLI VM from the PuTTY session, and you can see here right in my home directory, I'm just displaying my super user cert and my super user key. So we're going to go ahead and copy the cert first, which I just highlight it, nothing more, and then switch over back to Opsman, and then here we paste our cert value. Next we need the key value, so we'll go back over here. We're getting to our Ubuntu CLI VM and get our NSXT super user key value here. Just highlight that. I don't need to do anything other than highlight it to have it copied for me. As long as I don't touch anything that I'm not, else on the screen, then I'll lose it, right? But there we are. Make sure if we get rid of any trailing spaces there. Now our NSX Manager CA cert is the one we generated and saved back during the I think earlier in the phase 1 lab, and so this is going to be our nsx.crt value here. So we're going to go ahead and highlight that, copy it, go back into our Ops Manager tab, paste in the NSX Manager cert, and then we got all that stuff done. Now we'll go to Nodes DNS. Our DNS is 1110.10. These your cluster names is region A01 comp 01, and I spelled region wrong there. Okay, and we'll leave our default Kubernetes service network CIDR range. Okay, when we create services in our Kubernetes deployments, it'll use these ranges for like our cluster IPs and such. Okay, and we'll go ahead and enable outbound internet access from the pods. If that way, if we want to deploy, good thing to have. Why not? So go ahead and click save in a lab environment, so we don't have to worry about actual production requirements and corporate policy and such. Let's see. So next thing, we're going to select the UAA tab and select the value here for internal UAA. And actually, it looks like it's already there, but we're going to go ahead and click save. Go to logging, and we're going to set up our VRLI integration here. And so we're going to say yes to VRLI. It's VRLI-01A.corp.local. And let's see. We'll go ahead and disable SSL certificate validation since I'm not. You're not using real certificates really in the lab, anyways. And go ahead and click save. That's all we need to do there. And let's see. Next, we'll go to the usage data. So let's go here. Usage data tab. We'll say no, we don't want to join the telemetry program here from our lab environment. This probably is not the type of data they're looking for. Let's see. Resource config tab. And we're going to change resource config. And we're going to change this to a medium.disk. It works and preserves a little space for us. Go ahead and click save. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and apply these changes. And so we've finished all the configuration that we need to, so that Bosch and Ops Manager can go ahead and deploy and set up Enterprise PKS for us. So we'll go ahead and click on Installation Dashboard here, review pending changes, and now we'll go ahead and apply changes. And I'll go ahead and pause the video. We'll come back when this is finished. Okay, I am back, and we can see here that I have this window changes applied. Your changes were successfully applied, and I have to actually let you know I did cheat here a little bit. On the first deployment, that I did came back, said there was an error. I don't want to distract everybody who's just going through the normal installation process. It was just one of the I'll show you. It was just put an IP address or a host name where I should have put an IP address. But I'll actually create a separate video where I'll show you how I would troubleshoot that error, because it's actually some very common steps if you have deployment errors that you'll typically go through regardless of what exactly the issue turns out to be, how to get in and find the log files and such. But we'll do that in a separate video. But so if you were following along or if you did have an error, what the problem was, and I've already updated the lab guide here, and so here we are on our step 1.10 of the lab guide, and I've updated this now to where this is the correct value now, 192.168.110.42. But previously, the first time I entered it, a few minutes ago in the video, we had the values as the host name nsxmgr-01a.corp.local, and that's probably actually a better way to do it, but this is the functional way we're doing it right now, because when we generated the certificate signing request that we used in here had the IP address in there. It did not have the appropriate host name, and so the certificate agreements don't work if you use NSX manager host name here. And so that's something good to know. At some point I'll get around to update that, have to go in and correct the certificate signing request and all that, but in the meantime this is perfectly fine. We just have to know you got to put in this IP address on this step. Documentation is updated, and it's also good to note there that the documentation is going to get updated all the time, right? Updating a line of text is a lot better than easier than trying to re-record a video. So we'll try our best to keep the videos current, but in all cases, if you're following along, you should always defer to the current instructions or anything that you see in the video. It's almost highly likely the instructions will be more current if we find any things like this we need to correct. Okay, so now let's go ahead and check this out. So we're let's see, and so we finished there. That was step 1.15, and so this is the end of the phase 2 of the installation. We now have a working PKS environment. Really, the next step to using your PKS environment is to log into PKS. That may be how we might validate it. But there is a step before logging into PKS that we would need to do to be able to log in PKS, and that is to work with UAA and create yourself an account, a PKS administration account first, so that way you can log in. And so that we actually do as part of the deploy cluster lab guide. And before we do that, I actually set up Harbor, since we're just doing these tiles. Set up deploy Harbor, and that's not necessarily a best practice to deploy Harbor first. Maybe it'd be good to do it the other way around, but that's how we've set up the process so far, and it works fine. So the next video we're going to look at deploying the Harbor tile here, and then after that we'll get into deploying our first cluster, where we'll set up a UAA or an account with our user account and authorization service, and we'll go from there. Thanks for listening.